The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
And welcome back to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Craig McKee. Covington is literally about to write a new map for its future. The city says the current zoning code is so broken it's going to scrap it and start from scratch. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about that and what the fix might look like is the Director of Economic Development for Covington, Tom West. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess the big question here first off is why does it need to be reworked? I know it's a broad question, but why now?
Yeah, well, it's been needed to be reworked for a long time. We've been slapping Band-Aids on it for years.
In the way of variances for different developers?
Well, that's part of it, and that's the thing you can kind of do immediately. The larger Band-Aids, or maybe those are bandages per se, are things like text amendments, map amendments, where the code does not recognize new uses, for example, or changing characteristics of uses, or certain areas of the city that are really kind of picking up in development, or the development patterns are changing. It's not been responsive to that. And there is a better way of doing this. We have a Euclidean code, and for those of you out there, that is not related to the Greek mathematician, but a village in Ohio that came up with Euclidean zoning. And that really focuses on uses rather than how the development addresses the public realm. And that's what people really care about. How high are the fences, or what is the form of the building, the mass of the building, how large is it, that type of thing. So we want a code, especially in the north part of the city, the more urbanized, older historic part, that really talks to that form or character more so than what goes on inside of a building. In the old days, you had to separate uses like manufacturing from residential because manufacturing was dirty, dark, and dangerous. Right. Now, manufacturing can be some of the cleanest industries. We have road ID right in the heart of our downtown. We had to go slap a Band-Aid on our code because on the first level on 8th Street, one block off of our main drag there with Madison Avenue, you weren't allowed to have a restaurant. Didn't make a lot of sense. Right. And so we had to go through a 3-month process to fix that so we could get a restaurant in there.
Is there an example of any projects or businesses that said, hey, we want to relocate to Gov, and ultimately it was squashed and couldn't go through because of the zoning that's in place? No,
not necessarily, but it does tend to slow down. We don't know a lot of times how much things like zoning or other policies that we might have might slow down investment or development. Ultimately, the dream of this project is that we have a code that encourages investment and development by making it easy, written in plain English with lots of graphics so that everybody can understand it. It's all in one place. We're not referring you to different documents, different sections. Right. Everything you need to know about your site, whether it's commercial or residential, is all in one place, and it's easy to understand.
So what types of businesses or entrepreneurs, who are you hoping, once you change this zoning, who do you hope comes to your front door and says, hey, Covington, we want to make you our home? Well,
and it's not even really about that by the type of that. We obviously want entrepreneurs and businesses with great jobs to come to Covington. This is also about homeowners and developers who are looking at what potentially could I do on this site. And again, we want to get away from the, you're not allowed to have tattoos or piercings, but you are allowed to have this on this site and that site, to more of how does the building that gets developed there or redeveloped there address the public realm, rather than necessarily what happens inside of it. We've got other ways that we work with businesses on trying to attract the type that fit with our strategy on the jobs we want to create.
I would assume that, and not having gone out and actually spoken to them face to face, but I would assume that some in Covington would be concerned of two different things. One, changing the unique feel when you were in downtown Covington and losing that as a result of this rezoning, and also the cost, whether or not it's going to cost taxpayers a ton of money to make this happen.
Yeah, we're spreading the cost of the actual code rewrite over the course of 2 fiscal year budgets. When you look at how much has been spent, because there's a cost of
the delay process and
around
going through all
800.
those.
Well, you've got those costs, but then there's an actual real cost every time we do a map amendment, every time we do a text amendment that can go from $800 up to $1,500 every time we do one of those. You do enough of those a year, you start to get to the point where it would be more efficient to have a new code. We also want to encourage more investment in the community and making it easier for people to spend their money on their homes, their properties, their commercial developments. We think will generate additional revenue for the taxpayers. But ultimately, it's about making things easier and making things more predictable. And that's the challenge that we always run into. Rather than someone having to pay to go to the Board of Adjustment to get a variance, let's have you be able to do things that make sense by right instead of having to put you through all that red tape and bureaucracy.
When you're looking at developmental land, obviously there could be some situations where some structures have to be torn down and things be built up. But when you look at the IRS site, I would think there are a number of maybe businesses out there, opportunities that are like, we could really do something with that. Anything in the works? Anything you can talk about? Yeah,
we have signed the contract with a consultant now. They'll be starting in January, along with the zoning project that starts in January. To do a master plan for that site. It will be market feasibility. It's really going to be grounded in data and reality of what will happen with that. The beauty of having that go on and have that wrap up in October and our zoning continuing on for another several months after that is we're able to integrate what that master plan says into the new code. So that we don't have to come back and do map amendments and text amendments to make the zoning match what the master plan says. I want to go back to your point too about preserving our character.
Right.
I like to think of it as our quirkiness, our weirdness, our funkiness that we absolutely love and embrace. And part of having a form-based or character-based code allows us to protect that even more so than the existing code does. We're also trying to do something that's rather unique in the country, and that is incorporate our historic preservation guidelines into the same document. So you're not referring again to two documents if you live in a historic zone.
Right.
You find it all in one place.
You mentioned till October and then the months afterwards. So what's the implementation timeline here to actually get this all done, signed, sealed, and delivered?
For the IRS master plan, that will be October of next year. The zoning, we're referring to it as a neighborhood development code. We want to get rid of the Z word. It has a negative connotation. That should be done in 18 months. So by July of 2020. We should have that ready for adoption.
All right, Covington Director of Economic Development, Tom West, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We'll continue to follow the developments.
Absolutely.
All right, This Week in Cincinnati, we'll be right back.
The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.